Welcome back. Today we're diving into, well, a pretty fascinating story of market disruption. We're looking at Italy's auto sector, fiercely competitive, right? And right in the middle of it, there's this iconic British brand, MG, now owned by China's SAIC Motor, that's Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, for context. And they're not just, entering the market. They seem to be fundamentally shaking things up. So if you're wondering how a brand pulls off this kind of explosive growth, especially when the established players, the legacy brands, seem to be shrinking, well, that's our mission today. We want to understand the mechanics behind MG's resurgence. How did SAIC leverage this historic European nameplate and turn it into a real challenger against giants like Fiat, VW, Toyota, right on their home turf? And get this, here's the stat that really grabs your attention, the thing that makes this such a textbook case. MG officially launched in Italy just over 4 years ago, a little over 4 years. But by October of this year, they'd already blown past 40,000 total registrations. Now, just pause on that number, 40,000.
That's the entire volume they registered in all of last year, 2024. So they basically hit their annual target in 10 months. That's not just growth. It feels more like a strategic takeover unfolding.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how this success story is playing out against, frankly, a pretty stagnant backdrop. You really need to grasp the overall health, or maybe lack thereof, of the Italian passenger car market right now. It's slow. Italy's economy, it's projected for slow growth, and the car sector's feeling it. Consumers are cautious, and the market's contracting. Just look at the numbers. Year-to-date sales up to September 2025, down 2.9% overall, and this sluggish environment is hitting the really big names hard. Even the market leader, Fiat, Italian brand loyalty is a thing. Their sales dropped 6.3%. Volkswagen was down 5.1%. Even Toyota, usually known for stability, saw a dip of 1.7%. So the heavyweights, they're all struggling to just hold on to their volume.
Right, and that's the stark contrast, isn't it? That's what we need to unpack. While these huge established brands are fighting just to minimize losses in this tough climate, MG is showing what our sources are calling unstoppable momentum. Their strategy seems to have just vaulted them past all that struggle. They've grabbed a market share now over 3%. I mean, going from basically 0 4 years back to overtaking brands Italians have known for generations. It really suggests they found a massive gap in the market. Okay, so let's try and unpack that strategic thinking. Because disrupting a market like Italy's, one so steeped in tradition, that doesn't just happen by chance. SAIC Motor Italy must have had a very clear plan. What were the key pillars, the critical elements they used to drive this success, especially in such a difficult environment?
Well, they really aimed for a mix, didn't they? Something that combined desirability with actual feasibility for the average buyer. They broke it down into 3 core pillars. First pillar, sustainable mobility. This means a really strong focus on electrification right from the start. Second, constructive quality. Basically reassuring people that even though the price was accessible, the cars were solidly built. And the third one, maybe the most critical for sheer volume, economic accessibility. They really hammered home the affordability aspect, targeting consumers looking perhaps to switch to electric or just needing a modern family car without that huge price tag.
That economic accessibility feels absolutely key. But I want to pause on the brand strategy itself for a second. They didn't just roll in as SAI, did they? Or launch some completely unknown name like some other new entrants are doing. They used MG.
Ah, yes. That was, I think, the truly astute move. Very clever. They tapped into that iconic, recognizable MG brand name, its history. They capitalized on the sort of nostalgia and the quality associations that linger across Europe. And that heritage, it immediately gave Italian customers a level of confidence, of trust. It helps offset that natural skepticism you might feel towards a completely new player, especially a foreign one.
Okay, but isn't there a potential pitfall there? You call it astute, but relying on this classic British heritage to sell affordable mass-market EVs in a price-sensitive shrinking market, is SAEC actually revitalizing the MG legacy, or could they be maybe diluting that historic brand identity in the long run by chasing volume over, say, prestige?
That's a really important question for the long view, absolutely. But the short-term results, they strongly suggest revival. They're making the MG name relevant again, relevant to a whole new generation. They're selling cars, lots of them. And that volume proves the strategy is hitting the mark. Andrea Bartolomeo, the country manager, actually highlighted this. He said reaching 40,000 cars wasn't just about the number. It proved their strategy was, and I quote, interception perfectly the needs of consumers. They saw a need for modern, affordable, electrified transport, and they delivered it under a name people felt they could trust.
Right. If they perfectly intercepted needs, then we need to look at what they used. What are the actual products, the vehicles driving this momentum,
Yeah,
especially on the electric side?
Yeah, the product strategy is crucial here. The speed and the breadth of their innovation really underpin the volume success. They didn't just offer pure electrics, which can still feel like a leap for some. They brought in their hybrid plus technology just within the last year and a half or so. That kind of commitment to different levels of electrification, it tackles range anxiety and budget worries at the same time. You see this reflected immediately in their sales mix. Get this. Over 56% of the MG models currently sold in Italy are now electrified in some way, hybrid or full electric. That's a huge share. It puts them right at the forefront of that market transition, appealing directly to those maybe more price-conscious buyers who are ready to move beyond just petrol or diesel.
So we need to nail down which specific models are doing the heavy lifting here. The sources mention the MG ZS, the MG HS, and the MG3 is consolidating the brand. But what are these cars? How do they fit that economic accessibility pillar we talk about?
Excellent point. We can't just talk acronyms. Okay, the MG ZS, that's their compact SUV, absolutely critical segment. Hits that sweet spot for affordable urban driving, maybe small families. The MG HS is a bit bigger, a medium-sized SUV, offers more space, but still stays away from that premium price tag. And the MG3, that's their small hatchback. Very affordable, likely the entry point for many buyers into the brand.
Okay, so SAIC played it smart. They didn't lead with some niche sports car or a luxury sedan. They went straight for the highest volume, most accessible segments, compact SUVs, small hatchbacks, and crucially, offered electrified options there. That sounds like really sharp market analysis. They knew exactly where the affordability gap was widest.
Precisely. Practical cars for practical needs. But, selling the car is just the first step. Historically, a big worry with new entrants, especially from China into Europe, has always been the after-sales part. Service network, parts availability. Those can kill a brand's reputation fast. So how did MG convince Italian buyers they were a mature reality ready to provide proper support?
Yeah, that service skepticism is a massive hurdle, isn't it? If you hear stories about waiting 6 months for a simple part, you're not buying the car, no matter how cheap it is. The sources really highlight 2 key things MG did to build that trust and ensure they were reliable long term.
They didn't just promise good service, they actually built the local infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Big focus on rapidly expanding their sales and their assistance network across Italy. But probably the single most important operational move, opening that national spare parts warehouse last year.
Right.
That warehouse investment wasn't just operational, it was a strategic signal. It meant they could tackle service times head-on, removing one of the biggest historical barriers for potential buyers worried about long waits for repairs. It's hard to overstate the confidence that localized logistics brings. It showed they weren't just testing the waters, they were setting up shop properly.
So if we link that operational strength to the wider market, MG's success seems to fit perfectly with this accelerating wave of electrification in Italy, even if Italy itself is, well, still a bit behind the curve compared to other big European countries. Italian EV sales year to date up to September, they surged really impressively, 64.5%. That growth rate is huge. But, and this is the key thing, Italy's overall EV market share is still only around 9%, which means there's a massive amount of room for growth. MG seems perfectly positioned to just scoop up buyers in this growing, but still quite young, demand for electric and hybrid options.
Absolutely. They are succeeding in capturing serious volume within that overall EV surge. Now, we are seeing other brands posting phenomenal percentage growth in EVs too. You mentioned Fiat earlier. And the other big Chinese entrant, BYD, they're showing triple, sometimes even quadruple digit increases. But that doesn't really take away from MG's achievement. It just highlights how fast the market is shifting towards electric. And MG is grabbing a huge slice of that pie thanks to that accessibility focus. Looking ahead, it seems SAIC Motor Italy is really focused on consolidating their position now. Building on this success, they're talking about new initiatives and about reaching an increasingly diverse audience. The sources specifically mention growth among younger buyers and female customers, suggesting MG is being seen as modern, innovative, maybe even a bit cool, as well as accessible.
That demographic shift is really interesting. It means they're building a new customer base, not just poaching from other brands. That suggests a real change in perception. The country manager sounded quite confident, didn't he? Calling SAIC Motor Italy a mature reality, ready for 2026 with the wind in their sails. That's the kind of language you use when you feel like you've properly established yourself, built a permanent beachhead. So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you watching the European car market? It means MG has pulled off this incredibly swift rise using a really effective combination, leveraging that trusted, almost nostalgic brand heritage, ensuring the price was right, that economic accessibility, and moving fast on electrification.
And they managed all this while the traditional legacy brands were actually struggling just to tread water in a market defined by losses. Now, our source material points out that competition from Chinese manufacturers, in general, is putting pressure on the established European players. But think about this. There are two very different ways this is happening. You've got the BYD approach, a completely new brand, tech-focused, no real history in Europe, starting from scratch. And then you have the MG approach, SAIC, using a piece of European heritage, someone else's legacy brand, to gain instant trust and market share. So here's a final thought for you to consider. Which of these strategies poses the bigger long-term threat? Is it the acquisition and clever rebranding of history, like MG? Or is it the ground-up creation of a totally new identity, like BYD? Which one is potentially more disruptive for Europe's auto giants down the road? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into MG's surprising resurgence in Europe. We hope this gave you that shortcut you were looking for to understand these seismic shifts happening in the auto world right now. Do follow the channel for more expert analysis drawn straight from the sources. We'll catch you next time.